How's it going, friends? This is Max from Lettering Daily, and in this video I'll be walking you through my new Procreate brush pack called CalligraFUN. On top of the walkthrough video, I've included a tutorial where I'll show you how I create brush calligraphy layouts and compositions using the CalligraFUN brushes. Without any further delays, let's jump straight into it. So what is this brush pack all about? I've created the CalligraFUN brush pack with one purpose, and that's to have fun. It's created for both beginners as well as more experienced artists. If you already know the basics of brush calligraphy, then great. This brush pack offers a wide variety of custom-made Procreate brushes. And if you're just getting started, don't worry because I got you covered. But more on that later on in this video. So what is included in this brush pack? The CalligraFUN brush pack is divided into two main sections. First, we have the custom-made Procreate brushes, and then we have a bunch of extras that go along with them. So let's have a closer look. The CalligraFUN brush pack includes a variety of brushes across 4 different categories with a total of 41 custom-made brushes. The first category is called Real Brushes with a Z. These brushes were inspired by some of my favorite real brush pens, hence the name. A clean and precise writing experience is the best way to describe this category. Next up, we have the Nice and Smooth. And as the name says it, these brushes will give you a nice and smooth look to your brush calligraphy. Right after the Nice and Smooth, we have an opposite section called Rough and Dry. Created from textures and stamps of real markers, these brushes are all about rough and dry textures that will leave a very expressive and dynamic feel to your writing. To spice up your work, you'll find everything you need in the extras section. You'll see 2 different kinds of splatters, solid and watercolor. Additionally, there are 3 brushes specifically created to add intricate details to your work. Now, let me show you what sort of extras I've included in this brush pack. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the CalligraFUN brush pack is suited for both beginners and more experienced artists. The first extra included in the CalligraFUN brush pack is the mini workbook and a full set of worksheets. The workbook is in the form of a Procreate file and it contains both theory and drills. It will guide you from fundamentals towards more complex elements as you go along. It's super easy to use, and I've also added a quick video in the files that will show you exactly how to use it. Along with the workbook and the worksheets, there are 2 dedicated brushes that change the color based on the amount of pressure you add as you write. These have been specifically created to help you improve your thick and thin transitions. If you want to use the practice sheets without the theoretical part of the workbook, you'll find them separately among the files. Keep in mind that this workbook is touching base with just some of the core concepts of brush calligraphy. Next on the list are the paper backgrounds. I've included various paper backgrounds that you can add as a background to your brush calligraphy. And if needed, you can easily change their colors by simply dragging and dropping the color onto the canvas, like this. While we're talking about colors, I've also included 21 different color palettes that you can use as an inspiration for your artwork. Next are the guideline stamps. Guidelines are a crucial element for calligraphy, and I actually created a whole separate video on that topic. I'm not gonna explain it here again, so if you wanna watch the video about guidelines that I made recently, I left a link in the description. I've included 8 guideline brush stamps in this set, which includes some of the most frequent choices. Last but not least, I've created a mini tutorial where I guide you through my process of creating a brush lettering layout and composition using the CalligraFUN brushes. The tutorial is actually the second part of this video, so let's jump straight into it. I'll be using the CalligraFUN brushes for this mini tutorial, but you can use any other brushes you have in your brush library. But hey, guess what? I've also created a CalligraFUN sample pack containing a few brushes from this set. You can get them for free straight from the lettering crate. To get access to the lettering crate, you just need to sign up for my newsletter through my website. If you're already part of the lettering crate, you can download the sample pack right away. Okay, enough of the chit chat, let's start with the tutorial. Step 1. Create a canvas. My suggestion is to create a larger sized canvas with a higher amount of DPI. For reference, I'm working with a 12.9-inch iPad Pro and my canvas size is 4000 by 3000 pixels with a DPI of 300. Your size might be a bit smaller, but I would still keep the DPI at 300. Step 2 is to find a phrase, quote, or words that you want to create. This step is totally up to you. I would suggest that if you're a beginner, you start with 2 to 3 words, and then with time and practice, you can gradually increase the quantity. The more words you have, the more challenging it can be to lay them out efficiently. For this example, I decided to write out "for the love of letters." This seems like an appropriate quote, and it's not too long and not too short. Step 3 is thumbnail sketching. This is probably the most overlooked step, yet it's the secret to a good piece, at least in my opinion. Thumbnail sketching allows you to quickly lay down different ideas on the paper. This way, you can quickly explore different combinations in layouts and the general look of your composition. This doesn't have to look good, you're going through the sketches quickly and roughly, just like a 2 AM kebab. I would suggest doing at least 3 different ones and not more than 10. You want a minimum of diversity, but at the same time, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with too many options. The way I always like to start is by creating the most basic version possible. As soon as I have that one laid down, I can quickly begin noticing different combinations and variations. Try to emphasize more important words over connecting words such as the, a, of, and, etc. This is usually a general rule of thumb, but not always. Also, pay attention to your balance and excessive white spaces and gaps. You should avoid putting too much weight on one side compared to the other. Step 3. Set up your guides. Once you've picked your favorite thumbnail sketch, select it with the selection tool, duplicate it, enlarge it, and center it with the help of the smart guides. If you cannot see the smart guides, you can turn them on right here. Once you're done, make sure to turn off the layers underneath. Next, open up a layer and add the guidelines. As mentioned, we need the guidelines to keep our letters nice and consistent. I will use one of the guideline stamps from the brush pack, but you can create your own. In this scenario, I will just delete the ascending and descending lines of the stamps to avoid any overlapping, just to keep it nice and clean. I will duplicate the layer and drag the guidelines for each row. Once I have done that, I can merge all the guideline layers and lower their opacity along with the enlarged thumbnail sketch underneath. Step 4 is creating a rough draft. A huge benefit of Procreate is how easy it is to work with layers. Let's open up a new layer on top of the guidelines and let's begin. A quick note about these brushes. Depending on your technique and preference, you might want to adjust a quick setting in the brushes. I'm talking about the streamline bar. Those who are not familiar with this setting, it basically helps you create smoother lines, especially curves. In most cases, I keep it around 50%, but sometimes I like to lower it down to 15 to 20%, especially when I work with faster strokes. Honestly, I don't think there is a perfect number here, and it would be best that you test out different options by yourself. Okay, back to the rough draft. I have my sketch and my guidelines ready, and I'll pick one of the brushes from the CalligraFUN set. Here, I'm starting to create my first draft, and I'm not too worried about the details as much as the general look of the piece. Step 5. Refining the draft. Before I refine the draft, I like to take a second to analyze what I currently have. Again, I'm not focusing on the details of the letters, but the general piece. In particular, the balance and the negative space. It's not about the perfect letter, but rather about a good combination of all the elements. If I notice some spots that need a bit of adjustment, I make a rough mark with either a brush or a pencil. I then reduce the opacity of the rough draft and I open up a new layer on top of that. This time I'll try out a different brush and I'll try to be a bit more deliberate with my strokes. Sometimes I might even repeat the same stroke several times. I would also suggest that now you do each word in a separate layer. Later, you will most likely want to adjust the spacing between the words, and this makes it so much easier than having to select individual parts with the selection tool every single time. Okay, now I think I'm happy with what I have so far. Sometimes I might repeat the refining process a couple of times, and you shouldn't be afraid to do so as well. At the same time, try not to get sucked into a perfection loop and trying to refine the draft over and over and over and over again. This has happened to me so many times. Balance is the key, my friend. Step 6. Adding a background and colors. For this step, I'll grab one of the paper backgrounds from the set, and I'll also pick one of the color palettes that I've included. I like to have a good contrast between my backgrounds and my letters. If you want that pop, contrast is the way to go. A tip for good contrast is to have either dark letters on a light background or the other way around, light letters on a dark background. Step 7 is adding the details. There are just so many things you can do here. Shades, highlights, outlines, 3Ds, lines, illustrations, shapes, drips, splatters, colors. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is totally up to you how you want to do it. Sometimes I already have a good idea of what sort of details I want to add, but sometimes I just try a bunch of different things and see what works best. This is another great benefit of working with layers. As a general rule of thumb, I would say that these details should elevate and enhance your brush calligraphy and not take away from it. If you're just starting out, just go with something simple, and then with time you can increase the number of details that you add. Remember, the more elements you have, the more challenging it can be to combine everything efficiently. This just takes practice, and with time you'll start to train your eyes to see what works and what doesn't. I already have a few videos on my channel on how to apply different effects, and depending on when you're watching this, I will hopefully have more of them. And here's my final piece. Using the same process, you can create a variety of different layouts and compositions. Just keep practicing, and I promise you that with time, you will get better. Most importantly, remember to enjoy the process, because after all, that's what it's all about. If you want to check out the CalligraFUN brush pack, I left a link in the description. And if you just want to try them out first, remember that there is a free sample pack that you can grab from the lettering crate on my website. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if it was, consider leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel to keep up with my new and upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, cheers!